Dear friends, let us begin not with a doctrine, nor with a promise of salvation, but with a gentle invitation, a call to pause, to breathe, and to look anew at the world and at ourselves. In this moment, let us set aside, just for a while, the weight of our beliefs, the comfort of our certainties, and the noise of our restless minds. Let us meet here, in the quiet space between thoughts, where something deeper than words can be felt. We live in a world overflowing with information, with teachings, with philosophies and opinions. We are surrounded by books, by scriptures, by the voices of those who claim to know the way. Yet in the midst of all this, how often do we truly feel at home within ourselves? How often do we touch the peace that is not dependent on understanding, the freedom that is not the result of effort, the love that is not born from desire? The Buddha, whose name means the awakened one, did not come to give us more beliefs to hold, nor to establish a new system for us to follow blindly. He came to show us a way of seeing, a way of being that is as natural as breathing, as close as our own heartbeat, and as open as the sky. His teaching is not a cage, but a key, not a doctrine, but a door. But over the centuries, as his words were remembered, repeated and recorded, something subtle began to happen. The living presence of awakening, which is always fresh and immediate, was gradually wrapped in layers of interpretation, ritual, and tradition. The words that once pointed to freedom became, for many, another set of walls. The teachings that were meant to liberate became, at times, another source of division and debate. This is not a failure, nor a tragedy. It is simply the way of human beings. We long for certainty, for security, for something to hold on to in a world that is always changing. We turn living experience into memory, memory into story, story into scripture, and scripture into dogma. And yet beneath all of this, the invitation remains to wake up, to see for ourselves, to live with an open heart. Today I invite you to join me on a journey, not a journey of distance, but of depth. Not a journey to somewhere else, but a journey home. We will not seek to add more knowledge to our minds, but to gently peel away the layers that cover our natural clarity. We will not try to become someone new, but to remember who we have always been, beneath the noise and the names. This is not a path of renunciation in the old sense, nor a path of blind faith. It is the middle way, the way of balance, of presence, of gentle inquiry. It is a path that honors both reason and mystery, both the mind and the heart. It is a path that does not ask us to believe, but to look, not to worship, but to wonder, not to escape the world, but to embrace it with wisdom and compassion. As we begin, let us remember, the Buddha's teaching is not a set of answers, but a set of questions. It is not a system to be mastered, but a mirror in which to see ourselves more clearly. It is not a ladder to climb, but a ground to stand on, a ground that is always here, always now. So let us walk together, step by gentle step, into the heart of this teaching. Let us listen not only with our ears, but with our whole being. Let us be willing to let go of what we think we know, to make room for what is truly alive. Let us trust that in the silence between words, in the stillness beneath thought, something precious is waiting to be discovered. This is the invitation of the Dharma, not to become a follower, but to become free. Not to find a new identity, but to let go of all identities. Not to reach for some distant goal, but to awaken to the miracle of this very moment. As we move through the 10 reflections that follow, may we do so with humility, with curiosity, and with kindness toward ourselves and each other. May we remember that the true teaching is not in the words, but in the seeing, not in the form, but in the freedom, not in the past, but in the living present. Let us begin. The illusion of sacred texts. When we first encounter the teachings of the Buddha or any great spiritual tradition, it is natural to feel a sense of reverence for the scriptures. The words appear ancient, profound, and often shrouded in mystery. We may imagine that these texts are direct transmissions from the awakened mind of the Buddha himself, preserved perfectly through the ages, untouched by time or human hands. There is comfort in this idea, a sense of certainty, of something pure and unchanging in a world that is always shifting. But if we look honestly with gentle curiosity, we see that the story is more complex. The Buddha did not write a single word. He did not leave behind a book, a doctrine, or a set of commandments. What we call the Buddha's words are, in truth, the memories of his followers. Memories passed from mouth to ear, from heart to heart, for generations before they were ever written down. These memories were shaped by the minds and cultures of those who carried them, colored by their hopes, their fears, their understanding, and sometimes their misunderstandings. This is not a flaw nor a reason for cynicism. It is simply the nature of human experience. Every story, every teaching, every attempt to capture the living truth in words is, by necessity, a translation. A translation not only from one language to another, but from the infinite richness of direct experience into the narrow channels of speech and writing. No matter how sincere, no matter how careful, something is always lost in the process. Imagine for a moment a beautiful sunrise. You stand in awe as the sky is painted with colors beyond description. Later, you try to tell a friend about what you saw. You search for words. It was golden, it was vast, it was like the world was being born again. But you know as you speak that your words are only shadows of the real thing. Your friend may nod, may even feel moved, but unless they have stood in that same light, they cannot truly know what you experienced. So it is with the Dharma. The Buddha's awakening was not a set of ideas, but a living, breathing reality. His words were not meant to be frozen in time, but to point us toward our own direct seeing. When we treat the scriptures as sacred objects, as relics to be worshipped or defended, we risk missing the very heart of the teaching. We become like someone who clings to a photograph of the sunrise, forgetting to look up at the sky. This is not to say that the texts are without value. Far from it. They are precious reminders, signposts left by those who have walked before us. They carry echoes of the Buddha's insight, the fragrance of his compassion. But they are not the thing itself. They are not the sunrise. They are the finger pointing to the sky. If we approach the scriptures with humility, with a willingness to question and to wonder, they can become living companions on our path. But if we cling to them as absolute truth, as unchanging law, we risk turning them into walls that separate us from the living experience of awakening. We risk mistaking the menu for the meal, the map for the journey. In the West, we are often taught to value the written word, to seek authority in books and experts. We look for certainty, for something to rely on. But the Buddha's invitation is different. He asks us not to believe because it is written, not to accept because it is ancient, but to see for ourselves. Do not accept my words on faith alone, he is said to have taught. Test them in your own life as a goldsmith tests gold. This is a radical invitation. It asks us to move beyond the comfort of a second-hand knowledge, to step into the unknown, to trust our own capacity for insight. It asks us to honor the texts, but not to be bound by them, to learn from the past, but not to live in it. There is a gentle freedom in this approach. We are not required to defend the scriptures, to argue over their meaning, or to prove their authority. We are invited instead to listen deeply, to let the words touch our hearts, and then to look beyond them, to the living truth that is always here, always now. In this way, the illusion of sacred texts is not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to be entered. It is an opportunity to let go of our need for certainty, to open ourselves to the mystery of what cannot be written, cannot be spoken, but can only be lived. As we continue, let us hold the scriptures lightly, with gratitude and respect, but also with the courage to look beyond them. Let us remember that the true Dharma is not in the words, but in the seeing, not in the past, but in the present, not in the book, but in the heart, the limits of language. If we pause for a moment and reflect, we may notice how much of our lives are shaped by words. From the time we are children, we are taught to name, to describe, to explain. Language is a remarkable gift. It allows us to share our experiences, to build relationships, to create meaning together. Yet for all its beauty and power, language is also a double-edged sword. It can connect us, but it can also divide. It can reveal, but it can also conceal. When it comes to the deepest truths of life, language begins to falter. The Buddha's awakening was not a theory, not a philosophy, not even a set of beliefs. It was a direct encounter with reality, unfiltered and unmediated. How can such an experience be captured in words? How can the taste of freedom, the peace of letting go, the boundless compassion of an awakened heart be pressed into the narrow shapes of sentences and syllables? Imagine trying to describe music to someone who has never heard a sound, or the color blue to someone born blind. No matter how eloquent your words, they will always fall short. The experience itself is beyond language. In the same way, the Buddha's insight is not something that can be fully explained or transmitted through speech or writing. It is something to be tasted, to be lived, to be known directly. This is why, throughout the Buddhist tradition, there is a deep respect for silence. The most profound teachings are often given not in words, but in presence, in gesture, in the quiet space between thoughts. There are stories of the Buddha simply holding up a flower or remaining silent in response to a question, inviting his listeners to look beyond the surface, to see with new eyes. Yet as human beings, we are drawn to words. We want to understand, to define, to make sense of things. We turn the ineffable into doctrine, the mysterious into dogma. We argue over interpretations, forgetting that the truth is not in the words themselves, but in what they point toward. We become like travelers who mistake the signpost for the destination, or who collect maps but never set foot on the path. This is not a call to reject language, but to use it wisely. Words can be beautiful, inspiring, even transformative. A single phrase heard at the right moment can open the heart, can awaken a new way of seeing. But we must remember that words are only tools, not treasures. They are fingers pointing to the moon, not the moon itself. In the West, we often place great trust in definitions, in clarity, in the precision of language. We want things to be clear, to be certain, to be pinned down. But the deepest truths are not like that. They are fluid, alive, ever-changing. They cannot be captured, only encountered. The Buddha's teaching is not a set of fixed ideas, but an invitation to see for ourselves, to step into the living stream of experience. There is a gentle humility in recognizing the limits of language. We do not have to know everything, to explain everything, to have all the answers. We can rest in the mystery, in the not knowing, in the open space where new understanding can arise. We can listen not only to the words, but to the silence between them, to the feeling beneath them, to the presence that is always here. As we continue our journey, let us honor language for what it is, a bridge, a guide, a companion. But let us not mistake it for the destination. Let us be willing to let go of our need to define, to control, to possess the truth. Let us open ourselves to the possibility that the most important things in life cannot be said, but only lived. In this spirit, may we listen deeply, not only to the teachings, but to our own hearts. May we trust that, beyond all words, there is a wisdom that is always available, always present, always inviting us home. The danger of attachment to words. As we journey further, let us gently turn our attention to a subtle but powerful tendency within the human heart, the urge to cling, to hold tightly, even to the very teachings that were meant to set us free. This is the paradox at the heart of all spiritual traditions. The words of the wise, intended as keys to unlock the mind, can so easily become new locks, new chains, new walls. Why does this happen? Perhaps it is because in a world that is uncertain and ever-changing, we long for something solid, something we can rely on. The teachings of the Buddha, the scriptures, the rituals, these can become anchors in the stormy sea of life. They offer comfort, structure, and a sense of belonging. But if we are not careful, what was meant to be a raft to carry us across the river becomes a house we refuse to leave, a fortress we defend against all who differ. This is not a failing unique to Buddhism or to any one tradition. It is a universal human pattern. We see it in every religion, every philosophy, every ideology. The living spirit of inquiry, of openness, of discovery is gradually replaced by the rigidity of certainty, the safety of repetition, the pride of being right. The teachings become objects of worship rather than invitations to explore. The words become more important than the reality they point to. The Buddha himself warned against this. He spoke of his teachings as a raft, a means to cross the river of suffering, not a possession to be carried on one's back forever. Once you have crossed, he said, you do not need to carry the raft with you. Yet how often do we see people arguing over whose raft is best, whose interpretation is correct, whose tradition is purest? How often do we see communities divided, not by the spirit of the teaching, but by the letter of the law? There is a quiet tragedy in this. The very teachings that were meant to liberate become new sources of bondage. The words that once opened the heart now close it. The practices that once brought joy now become burdens. We become defenders of doctrine rather than seekers of truth. We become more interested in being right than in being free. But there is another way, the middle way. The way of the Buddha is not to reject the teachings nor to cling to them, but to use them skillfully as tools for awakening. It is to honor the words but not to be trapped by them. It is to remember that the true value of any teaching lies not in its form, but in its function. Does it help us to see more clearly, to love more deeply, to live more freely? This requires a kind of spiritual maturity, a willingness to let go, even of what is precious. It requires humility, the courage to admit that our understanding is always partial, always evolving. It requires trust in ourselves, in the process, in the possibility that truth is not a fixed point, but a living, breathing reality. In the West, we are often taught to defend our beliefs, to argue our case, to prove our point. But the Buddha's invitation is different. He asks us to look, to see, to experience for ourselves. He asks us to let go of attachment, not only to material things, but to ideas, to identities, to the very teachings that brought us to the path. This is not easy. It can feel like stepping into emptiness, like losing our footing. But in that letting go, something beautiful happens. The heart opens. The mind becomes spacious. We discover a freedom that is not dependent on being right or on having all the answers. We discover a peace that is not threatened by difference or by change. So let us hold the teachings lightly, with gratitude and respect, but also with the willingness to let them go when the time comes. Let us remember that the true Dharma is not a set of words, but a way of being, a way of seeing, of loving, of living. Let us trust that in the end, it is not what we believe that matters, but how we live, how we love, how we awaken. As we move forward, may we do so with open hands, open hearts, and open minds. May we use the teachings as guides, not as prisons. May we remember that the path is not about clinging, but about letting go. And in that letting go, may we find the freedom that the Buddha so gently, so patiently pointed us toward. The Buddha did not create a religion. As we continue our exploration, let us pause and consider a truth that is often overlooked, yet quietly transformative. The Buddha did not set out to create a religion. He did not envision temples, rituals, or hierarchies. He did not seek followers, nor did he claim exclusive authority over truth. The Buddha's life was not a project of institution building, but a living response to the suffering he saw in the world. When Siddhartha Gautama left his palace, he was not searching for a new doctrine to teach others. He was searching for the end of suffering, for himself and for all beings. His journey was deeply personal, yet profoundly universal. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree not to found a movement, but to awaken to the nature of reality. And when awakening dawned, he did not declare himself a prophet or a savior. He simply shared what he had seen with humility and compassion. The earliest accounts of the Buddha's life show a man who was remarkably free from dogma. He did not demand faith. He did not insist on conformity. He did not offer a system of beliefs to be accepted without question. Instead, he invited inquiry, encouraged doubt, and welcomed honest questioning. "Come and see for yourself," he would say. "Do not accept my words because of tradition or authority, or even out of respect for me. Test them in your own experience." This spirit of open inquiry is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. It is not about building walls, but about opening doors. It is not about creating insiders and outsiders, but about dissolving the boundaries that separate us. The Buddha's path is not a club to join, but a way of seeing and being that is available to all, regardless of background, belief, or identity. Yet as time passed, the natural human tendency to organize, to systematize, to institutionalize, began to shape the legacy of the Buddha. Communities formed, rules were written, rituals developed, and hierarchies emerged. What began as a living, breathing inquiry into the nature of suffering and freedom gradually became a religion with all the trappings of authority, tradition, and orthodoxy. This is not a criticism, but an observation. Human beings seek structure and meaning. We long for community, for shared values, for a sense of belonging. Institutions can offer support, continuity, and a way to preserve teachings across generations. But there is a risk. The living spirit of the Dharma can be overshadowed by the forms that were meant to serve it. The finger pointing to the moon can become more important than the moon itself. In the West, many people encounter Buddhism as a religion, complete with temples, robes, rituals, and rules. Some are drawn to these forms, finding beauty and comfort in tradition. Others are put off, feeling that the essence of the teaching is lost in ceremony and hierarchy. But if we look deeper, we see that the heart of the Buddha's message is not about joining a religion, but about waking up to reality here and now. The Buddha's teaching is a call to direct experience, to personal responsibility, to compassionate action. It is not about believing in something outside ourselves, but about discovering the truth within. It is not about following a leader, but about becoming our own lamp, our own guide. The Buddha did not ask for worship, he asked for understanding. He did not offer salvation, he offered a path to freedom. This is the middle way, not the way of blind faith, nor the way of cynical rejection, but the way of honest inquiry and open-hearted engagement. It is a path that honors tradition, but is not bound by it, that values community, but does not lose the individual, that respects the past, but lives fully in the present. As we reflect on this, let us remember that the true legacy of the Buddha is not an institution, but an invitation. It is not a set of beliefs, but a way of seeing. It is not a religion to join, but a freedom to discover. The forms may change, the words may differ, but the invitation remains to see for ourselves, to awaken, to live with wisdom and compassion. May we honor the Buddha not by building monuments, but by embodying his spirit of inquiry, humility, and love. May we remember that the path is not about becoming a follower, but about becoming free. And may we trust that, in the end, the true Dharma is not found in any institution, but in the living heart of each one of us. The living presence beyond text. If we listen deeply, we may sense that the most transformative moments in life are often those that cannot be captured in words. There is a quality of presence, a silent transmission that moves from heart to heart, from being to being, beyond the reach of language or doctrine. This is the living presence, the true spirit of awakening that the Buddha embodied and that each of us can touch, if only for a fleeting moment. Consider the stories told about the Buddha, not just the words he spoke, but the way he was. There are tales of him sitting quietly beside someone in pain, offering no advice, no teaching, just his full, compassionate presence. There are stories of his gentle gaze, his patient listening, his simple acts of kindness. These moments, though rarely recorded in scripture, are perhaps the most powerful teachings of all. What is it that makes such presence so healing, so transformative? It is not the content of what is said, but the quality of attention, the depth of being. When we are truly present with another, without judgment, without agenda, without the need to fix or explain, something opens. The boundaries between self and other soften. The heart recognizes itself in the other. In that space, healing happens naturally, without effort. The Buddha's presence was like this: a mirror in which others could see their own true nature, a space in which suffering could dissolve, not through explanation, but through understanding. His silence was not empty, but full of meaning. His stillness was not passive, but alive with compassion. In his company, people felt seen, accepted, and free. This living presence cannot be written down, cannot be systematized, cannot be preserved in doctrine. It is always fresh, always immediate, always available in the here and now. It is not something we can possess or control, but something we can open to, something we can embody in our own lives. In the West, we often seek transformation through information, through books, lectures, and teachings. We look for answers, for techniques, for methods, but the deepest transformation comes not from what we know, but from how we are. It comes from the quality of our presence, the openness of our heart, the willingness to meet life as it is. This is why, in many spiritual traditions, the most profound teachings are given in silence. A teacher may simply sit with a student, sharing a cup of tea, walking in the garden, or gazing at the stars. No words are needed. The teaching is in the being, in the shared presence, in the silent understanding that passes between them. The Buddha's living presence is not a relic of the past, but a possibility in every moment. Whenever we meet another with genuine attention, with kindness, with openness, we are continuing his legacy. Whenever we listen deeply, without rushing to judge or advise, we are embodying his spirit. Whenever we allow ourselves to be fully present, even in the midst of difficulty, we are touching the heart of awakening. Let us not underestimate the power of presence. In a world that is noisy, distracted, and hungry for connection, the gift of our full attention is more precious than ever. We do not need to be experts or to have all the answers. We need only to be here, now, with an open heart. As we reflect on this, may we remember that the true Dharma is not just in the words, but in the way we live, the way we listen, the way we love. May we trust that, beyond all teachings, there is a living presence that is always available, always inviting us home. And may we offer that presence to ourselves, to each other, and to the world. The trap of spiritual authority. As we journey further, it is important to recognize another subtle challenge on the path: the allure and the danger of spiritual authority. Throughout history, wherever wisdom has been spoken, there have arisen those who claim to possess it, to guard it, to interpret it for others. This is not unique to Buddhism, nor to any one tradition. It is a pattern woven into the fabric of human society. After the Buddha's passing, his teachings were cherished and preserved by devoted followers. Over time, as communities grew, there emerged a need for structure, for guidance, for continuity. Monasteries were built, councils were held, and the words of the Buddha were collected, debated, and codified. Out of this process, a new kind of authority was born, not the living authority of direct experience, but the institutional authority of knowledge, position, and tradition. At first, this may seem harmless, even necessary. After all, how else can teaching survive the passage of centuries? But there is a hidden danger. When spiritual authority becomes concentrated in individuals or institutions, the living spirit of inquiry can be stifled. The focus shifts from awakening to allegiance, from discovery to obedience, from questioning to conformity. We see this in many forms. Those who memorize the most scriptures are revered as wise. Those who can explain the teachings most eloquently are given positions of honor. Those who challenge the established order are often silenced or marginalized. The community becomes less a place of exploration and more a system of control. The teachings, once alive and liberating, become tools for maintaining power and status. The Buddha himself warned against this. He encouraged his followers not to accept his words out of reverence, but to test them in their own lives. He spoke against blind faith, urging each person to be a lamp unto themselves. Yet as time passed, the natural human longing for certainty and security led to the rise of new authorities. Teachers, abbots, scholars, each claiming to hold the key to the Dharma. In the West, we are not immune to this pattern. We may look to charismatic teachers, best-selling authors, or popular movements for guidance. We may find comfort in belonging to a group, in following a respected leader, in adopting a shared identity. But if we are not careful, we can lose touch with our own inner authority, our own capacity for direct knowing. True wisdom is not a possession to be handed down, nor a badge to be worn. It is a living flame, kindled in the heart of each person who dares to look, to question, to see for themselves. The greatest teachers are those who point us back to our own experience, who encourage us to trust our own insight, who remind us that the path is not about following, but about awakening. This does not mean we should reject all guidance or refuse all help. There is great value in learning from those who have walked before us, in listening to the voices of experience, in honoring the wisdom of tradition. But we must do so with discernment, with humility, with the willingness to question and to grow. Let us be wary of any authority, external or internal, that claims to have all the answers. Let us remember that the true Dharma is not a system to be mastered, but a mystery to be lived. Let us honor our teachers, but not idolize them. Respect our traditions, but not be bound by them. Cherish our communities, but not lose ourselves within them. As we continue, may we walk the path with open eyes and open hearts, trusting in our own capacity for wisdom while remaining humble and receptive. May we remember that the greatest authority is not outside us, but within, the quiet voice of truth that speaks in the stillness of our own being. The practice of letting go. As we walk further along this path, we come to a turning point that is both simple and profound, the practice of letting go. In many ways, this is the heart of the Buddha's teaching, not the accumulation of knowledge, not the perfection of rituals, not the achievement of spiritual status, but the gentle art of release. Letting go is not a dramatic act. It is not a rejection of the world, nor a denial of our humanity. Rather, it is a quiet willingness to loosen our grip on the things we cling to, our ideas, our identities, our expectations, even our attachment to the teachings themselves. It is the recognition that true freedom is not found in holding on, but in opening our hands, our hearts, our minds. Why is letting go so central? Because suffering arises from clinging, from the belief that we must possess, control, or secure what is, by nature, impermanent and uncontrollable. We cling to pleasure, to comfort, to certainty, to reputation, to the hope that things will always go our way. And when life inevitably changes, as it always does, we feel pain, frustration, and loss. The Buddha saw this clearly. He did not teach us to escape the world, but to see it as it is, to recognize the impermanence of all things, and to find peace in the midst of change. Letting go is not about giving up on life, but about giving up our illusions about life. It is about meeting each moment with openness, curiosity, and trust. This practice is not easy. Our habits of clinging run deep. We may find ourselves holding tightly to our opinions, our roles, our sense of self. We may even cling to the very path that brought us here, turning the teachings into another possession, another source of identity. But the Buddha's invitation is always the same: to let go, to return to the simplicity of being, to rest in the spaciousness of not knowing. In the West, we are often taught to strive, to achieve, to accumulate. We measure our worth by what we have, what we know, what we can show to others. But the path of letting go is different. It asks us to trust that we are enough, just as we are. It invites us to release the need to prove ourselves, to defend our beliefs, to control the outcome. Letting go does not mean becoming passive or indifferent. It means engaging with life fully, but without attachment to results. It means loving deeply, but without trying to possess. It means acting with integrity, but without needing recognition. It means being present, but not imprisoned by the past or the future. This is a practice, not a one-time event. Each day, each moment, we are given opportunities to let go. A thought, a grudge, a fear, a hope. Sometimes it is easy, sometimes it feels impossible. But with patience, with kindness, with gentle persistence, we discover a new kind of freedom, a freedom that is not dependent on circumstances, but arises from within. As we reflect on this, may we remember that the path is not about adding more, but about releasing what no longer serves. May we trust that, in letting go, we do not lose ourselves, but find ourselves, spacious, open, alive. And may we offer this freedom to others, meeting them not with demands or expectations, but with the gift of acceptance and love. Let us walk this path together, step by gentle step, letting go of what we do not need, and discovering in the empty hands of the present moment the fullness of life itself. Awakening is not in the words. As our journey deepens, we come to a realization that is both humbling and liberating. Awakening, the heart of the Buddha's message, cannot be found in words, no matter how beautiful or profound. Enlightenment is not a concept to be understood, not a philosophy to be mastered, not a state to be described or possessed. It is a living reality, immediate and intimate, that can only be known directly. We may spend years studying scriptures, attending teachings, and engaging in practices. We may become skilled in explaining the Dharma, quoting the sutras, and debating subtle points of doctrine. Yet if we are honest, we must admit that none of this guarantees awakening. The mind can be full of knowledge, yet the heart may remain untouched. The words can be on our lips, but the truth may not be alive in our being. Why is this so? Because words are, by their nature, symbols, pointers, not the thing itself. They can guide us, inspire us, challenge us, but they cannot deliver us to the living experience of freedom. The Buddha's teachings are like a raft, as he himself said. They are meant to carry us across the river of suffering, not to be clung to or worshipped once we have reached the other shore. This is a subtle but crucial point. Many seekers become attached to the teachings themselves, mistaking the map for the territory, the menu for the meal. We may become collectors of spiritual knowledge, but miss the invitation to taste, to see, to awaken here and now. The true Dharma is not a set of beliefs, but a way of seeing, a shift in perception that transforms our relationship to ourselves, to others, and to the world. In the West, we often value intellectual understanding, clarity, and analysis. We want to know, to define, to explain. But the deepest truths cannot be captured in concepts. They are like the taste of honey. No amount of description can substitute for the direct experience. The Buddha's awakening was not a theory, but a radical seeing into the nature of reality, a letting go of all fixed views, a resting in the simplicity of what is. This is why, in the Zen tradition, there is a saying, "Do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon itself." The teachings point us toward awakening, but they are not awakening. The words can inspire us, but they cannot awaken us. Only our own direct seeing, our own willingness to let go of all concepts and rest in the immediacy of experience can open the door. This is not to dismiss the value of study, reflection, or practice. These are important supports on the path, but we must remember their true purpose, to bring us home to ourselves, to the living presence that is always here, always now. When the teachings have served their purpose, we must be willing to let them go, to step beyond the words, into the silence and spaciousness of being. Awakening is not something distant or extraordinary. It is the simple recognition of what has always been true. The openness, the clarity, the compassion that are our natural birthright. It is not a prize to be won, but a gift to be received. It is not found in the future, but in the present moment, in the willingness to be fully here, just as we are. As we reflect on this, may we honor the teachings, but not be limited by them. May we use words as guides, but not as prisons. May we trust that the truth we seek is not outside us, but within, waiting to be discovered in the quiet depths of our own heart. Let us walk this path with humility, with curiosity, and with the courage to step beyond all words into the living mystery of awakening. The courage to stand alone. As our understanding matures, we encounter a profound and sometimes unsettling truth. The journey of awakening ultimately calls us to stand alone, not in isolation or loneliness, but in the deep, quiet strength of our own direct experience. The Buddha's final words to his disciples were not a command to follow, but an invitation to self-reliance. Be a lamp unto yourself. This is a radical message. It asks us to trust our own capacity for insight, to honor our own experience, even when it diverges from tradition, authority, or the expectations of others. It is easy to follow a path that has been laid out for us, to seek comfort in the approval of teachers, communities, or scriptures. But true freedom requires the courage to look within, to question, to discern, and to walk our own path. Standing alone does not mean rejecting guidance or wisdom. It means integrating what we have learned, testing it in the fire of our own life, and allowing it to become our own. It means being willing to let go of borrowed beliefs, to release the need for external validation, and to trust the quiet voice of truth that arises from within. In the West, we often celebrate individuality, but we may also fear the vulnerability that comes with true independence. We may worry about making mistakes, about being misunderstood, about losing our place in the group. Yet the path of awakening is not about conformity, but about authenticity. It is about discovering what is real and true for us, here and now. The courage to stand alone is not the courage of defiance or rebellion, but the courage of honesty and humility. It is the willingness to admit what we do not know, to face our doubts and fears, to remain open to new understanding. It is the strength to walk through uncertainty, to make mistakes, to learn and grow, without clinging to certainty or approval. This is the essence of the middle way. Not dependence, not rejection, but a balanced, open-hearted engagement with life. We honor the wisdom of those who have gone before, but we do not become their shadows. We listen to the teachings, but we do not become their echo. We walk with others, but we do not lose ourselves in the crowd. The Buddha's invitation is clear. Do not look outside yourself for light. Do not wait for someone else to show you the way. The lamp you seek is already within you. The light of awareness, the warmth of compassion, the clarity of understanding. When we trust this inner light, we become free, not because we have all the answers, but because we are willing to live the questions. As we reflect on this, may we find the courage to stand alone, to trust our own experience, to honor our own path. May we support one another, not by demanding conformity, but by encouraging authenticity. And may we remember that, in the deepest sense, we are never truly alone. For the light that shines in one heart is the same light that shines in all. Let us walk forward, each as our own lamp, illuminating the path for ourselves and, in doing so, for others, living the unwritten Dharma. As our journey together draws to a close, let us return to the heart of the matter. The deepest truth cannot be written, spoken, or even fully thought. The Dharma, the living reality to which the Buddha pointed, is not a doctrine, not a system, not a set of rules or beliefs. It is the silent, open presence that underlies all things. The simple, direct experience of being alive, awake, and aware. Throughout history, human beings have tried to capture this truth in words, in rituals and philosophies. We have built temples, written scriptures, created traditions. These are beautiful expressions of our longing for meaning, our desire to honor what is sacred. But the real Dharma is not found in any of these forms. It is found in the way we live, in the quality of our attention, in the openness of our heart. The unwritten Dharma is alive in every moment of kindness, in every act of honesty, in every breath taken with awareness. It is present when we listen deeply, when we meet another with compassion, when we let go of our judgments and simply allow life to be as it is. It is not something we achieve, but something we remember, a return to our natural state of presence and connection. This is the invitation of the Buddha, not to become a follower, but to become free, not to cling to the past, but to awaken in the present, not to seek salvation elsewhere, but to discover the sacred in the ordinary, the infinite in the here and now. In the West, we are often taught to seek meaning and achievement, in accumulation, in leaving a legacy. But the greatest legacy is not what we leave behind, but how we live while we are here. The Buddha left no writings, no chosen successor, no fixed system. His greatest gift was his presence, his example, his invitation to each of us to see for ourselves. To live the unwritten Dharma is to live with humility, with curiosity, with a willingness to be changed by what we encounter. It is to meet each moment as a teacher, each person as a mirror, each experience as an opportunity to deepen our understanding and our love. It is to let go of the need to be right, to be certain, to be in control, and to rest in the spaciousness of not knowing. This is not a path of withdrawal from the world, but a path of full engagement. It is not about escaping suffering, but about meeting it with wisdom and compassion. It is not about becoming special, but about becoming real, fully human, fully alive, fully present. As we end this reflection, may we remember that the true Dharma is not something to be found, but something to be lived. It is not a treasure hidden in ancient texts, but a light shining in the heart of every being. It is not a goal to be reached, but a way of being to be embodied here and now. May we walk this path with gentleness, with courage, and with joy. May we honor the teachings but not be limited by them. May we trust our own experience and support one another in awakening to the living truth that is always, already, right here. Let us live the unwritten Dharma, not as followers of a tradition, but as friends of the truth, as lovers of life, as humble participants in the great mystery of being. Thank you for walking this path together. May your journey be blessed with clarity, with compassion, and with peace.